Glad you could be with us. I'm Phyllis Jackson. Welcome to Stay at Home Connect.
George Floyd's murder at the hands of police has led to massive protests in this country and around the world. Those protests are raising concerns about new cases of the virus. Doctors say crowds are a breeding ground for COVID-19 and want protesters and first responders to be careful and get tested. Doctors from Emory University are asking protesters to remember hand sanitizers and face coverings while marching. We talked to Dr. Jay Varkey from Emory's School of Medicine, who says the advice doesn't end there.
I'm actually advising that people wear face shields or something to protect your eyes. This could be protective eyewear, these could be goggles. And again, the goal here is to make sure that people don't inadvertently touch their face, especially the eyes, and introduce virus that can make themselves or others ill.
Eli Lilly begins the first human trials of an antibody treatment for coronavirus. Scientists want to make sure the therapy is safe and well tolerated. That's part of phase 1. The results from the randomized, placebo-controlled trial are expected later this month. The Atlanta City Council wraps up the fiscal year 21 remote interactive budget hearings. The council received hundreds of submissions from the public in the form of video, emails, voicemails, and questions via social media. Atlanta City Council member and Finance Executive Committee Chair Jennifer Ide said, with social distancing and our telework protocol in place, we've had to re-engineer how we do business, and our budget hearing is no different. It's vitally important that the public have their questions answered and for all of their comments to be available to us as we move forward and make decisions on the budget.
That's going to do it for Stay at Home Connect. Have a great evening.
Can one girl in a small town, an architect in a major city, and a suburban high school coach shape the future of the United States? Yes, they can. Because every 10 years, the census gives us that power. You can shape your future by responding to the 2020 census. Where do we need new roads to make our lives easier? Where will new school programs help our children thrive? Where could a new health clinic benefit neighborhoods? The 2020 census will inform these decisions and shape how billions of dollars will be distributed to communities like yours each year. And in 2020, you can respond to the census online, by phone, or by mail. It's easy, safe, and important. Make sure you and everyone you know is counted. Now is the time for you to get involved. Your community needs you. Together, we can educate and excite, inspire and make sure every voice is heard. Together, we can shape our future.
I'm Phyllis Jackson. Welcome to this special edition of Stay at Home Connect.
This message is bigger than the elected officials. This message is bigger than our government. This message is bigger than ourselves. This message is about justice. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it?
Now. So if anybody needs a mask or sanitizer, we want to stay as safe as possible.
What do we want? Justice. When do we want it?
I can be a part of something peaceful and impactful, and I want to be able to tell that story to my children the same way my ancestors were able to create this experience for me.
George Floyd still found himself on the ground saying over and over and over again, I can't breathe. And we've gathered this morning to say with him that we are marching in these streets because we can't breathe.
Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom announced yesterday in a challenge from our former President Barack Obama that she would form a task force to look at all excessive use policies and incidents because we want to be the best in Atlanta. We want to do what's right for our citizens.
We all came out here to march, to be able to have a peaceful march so that we can talk about how bad it is to have police murder, brutality, but also the injustices and inequalities that are in this world, that are also in this city at times.
The culture has to change. It has to change. Until it changes, nothing's going to get better.
I'm calling on all citizens of Atlanta, this state, this country, and the world. We've got to deal with the issue of race, and we need to review all of our policies. Status quo is no longer in order. And so for us, we've got a lot of work to do.
Don't stop until they pay the debt on the check that my father presented in 1963 on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Don't stop until there is justice and equity for black and brown people, not just in these United States, but all across the world that we live in.
Glad you could be with us. I'm Phyllis Jackson. Welcome to Stay at Home Connect.
George Floyd's murder at the hands of police has led to massive protests in this country and around the world. Those protests are raising concerns about new cases of the virus. Doctors say crowds are a breeding ground for COVID-19 and want protesters and first responders to be careful and get tested. Doctors from Emory University are asking protesters to remember hand sanitizers and face coverings while marching. We talked to Dr. Jay Varkey from Emory's School of Medicine, who says the advice doesn't end there.
I'm actually advising that people wear face shields or something to protect your eyes. This could be protective eyewear, these could be goggles. And again, the goal here is to make sure that people don't inadvertently touch their face, especially the eyes, and introduce virus that can make themselves or others ill.
Eli Lilly begins the first human trials of an antibody treatment for coronavirus. Scientists want to make sure the therapy is safe and well tolerated. That's part of phase 1. The results from the randomized, placebo-controlled trial are expected later this month. The Atlanta City Council wraps up the fiscal year 21 remote interactive budget hearings. The council received hundreds of submissions from the public in the form of video, emails, voicemails, and questions via social media. Atlanta City Council member and Finance Executive Committee Chair Jennifer Ide said, with social distancing and our telework protocol in place, we've had to re-engineer how we do business, and our budget hearing is no different. It's vitally important that the public have their questions answered and for all of their comments to be available to us as we move forward and make decisions on the budget.
That's going to do it for Stay at Home Connect. Have a great evening.
Can one girl in a small town, an architect in a major city, and a suburban high school coach shape the future of the United States? Yes, they can. Because every 10 years, the census gives us that power. You can shape your future by responding to the 2020 census. Where do we need new roads to make our lives easier? Where will new school programs help our children thrive? Where could a new health clinic benefit neighborhoods? The 2020 census will inform these decisions and shape how billions of dollars will be distributed to communities like yours each year. And in 2020, you can respond to the census online, by phone, or by mail. It's easy, safe, and important. Make sure you and everyone you know is counted. Now is the time for you to get involved. Your community needs you. Together, we can educate and excite, inspire, and make sure every voice is heard. Together, we can shape our future.
Yep, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Matt Westmoreland, Chair of the Community Development and Human Services Committee. This is our regularly scheduled, though remote, June 9th meeting. I have been joined by all of my colleagues, Councilmember Carla Smith, Amir Faroqui, Joyce Shepard, Antonio Brown, Michael Julian Bond, and I feel like I may be forgetting somebody. So if I am, please, Madeline Archibong. There we go. Thank you very much. I will make a motion to adopt our agenda. Can I get a second?
Second, Smith.
Second, Faroqui.
All right. There's a motion by Westmoreland and a second by Smith to adopt the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, could we please do this as an electronic vote, please?
Yes, we can. That'd be great.
One moment while we prepare the vote. Just one more moment, please. Vote is open.
Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. With that, the vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda is adopted. I will make a motion to approve our minutes. Is there a second?
Second, Faroqui.
Brown. A motion by Westmoreland and a second by Faroqui. Please open that vote as well.
One moment, please. Vote is open.
Seven yeas, 0 nays. The minutes are approved. All right. Before we move on to public comment, colleagues, I have a bit of housekeeping that we need to attend to. On February 11th, 2020, this committee entered into an executive session to discuss potential litigation due to a technical issue with the voting system. A voice vote was taken, and the results of that vote were inadvertently not fully recorded in the minutes for the meeting, with the mover and the seconder missing from those minutes. And so to enter into executive session, the mover was myself, and the seconder was Councilmember Faroqui. To exit executive session, the mover was myself, and the seconder was Councilmember Smith. I would like to make a motion right now to amend our minutes from the February 11th, 2020 Community Development and Human Services Committee meeting by striking the portion that says executive session, enter executive session, voice vote, exit executive session, voice vote, and to insert the following. Executive session, the result was to enter into executive session by unanimous consent. The mover was Matt Westmoreland. The seconder was Amir Faroqui. The ayes were Westmoreland, Faroqui, Archibong, Brown, and Shepard. The nays were none. No abstentions, and Councilmembers Bond and Smith were away. The result to exit executive session was unanimous consent. The mover was Matt Westmoreland. The seconder was Carla Smith. The ayes were Westmoreland, Smith, Archibong, Faroqui, and Shepard. There were no nays, no abstentions, and Councilmembers Bond and Brown were away. So is there a second to amend our minutes?
Second, Faroqui. Second,
Brown. The second by Councilmember Faroqui. Is there any discussion? If no discussion, will the staff please prepare the vote?
Vote is open.
Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. Those minutes are amended. One additional piece, colleagues. On February 25th, this committee approved the minutes for the February 11th, 2020 CDHS committee meeting. The results were not fully recorded in the minutes of that meeting as well. I'd like to amend the minutes of the February 25th, 2020 Community Development and Human Services Committee meetings by striking the portion that says approval of minutes approved, and to insert the following: approval of minutes. The result was the adoption of the minutes from February 11th by unanimous consent. The mover was Carla Smith. The seconder was Amir Faroqi. The ayes were Westmoreland, Archibong, Brown, Faroqi, Shepard, and Smith. Councilmember Bond was away. There were no nays and no abstentions. Is there a second to that motion?
Second, Smith.
Motion by Westmoreland and a second by Councilmember Smith. Is there any discussion? If not, if the staff would please bear the vote.
Vote is open.
Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. Thank you all very much. Next up on our agenda is public comment. Ms. Pouladini, will you please bring us those remarks?
Yes, 1 moment, please.
Hi, my name is Shirley Williams, and I'm Shamila Williams' proud mom. I've lived and worked in the Tri-Cities area my entire life. So has my daughter, who graduated from Tri-Cities High School. Now we have the chance to balance the bench by voting for Shamila Williams for Superior Court Judge. Vote Shamila Williams for Judge. Paid for.
Hi, my name is Nick Johnson. I am calling in regards to the comments made during yesterday's meeting on defunding the Atlanta Police Department. I want to address a few of the misconceptions that Councilwoman Shepard and Councilman Bond had regarding what defund the police really means. So defund the police does not mean have a city with no order. It means not using the police as a response to every community intervention. It means putting money into community health, community growth, and development. And I listened yesterday as you belittled defund the police as just a talking point from people who you think are unorganized. But you all, the council board, you don't want to do the mental work of imagining a place where police, a historically violent group, is used as a response to everything within the community. Councilwoman Shepard, you said that you think police simply need more training. But research has shown that more training does not reduce police violence. And more training means more money being put into the police. This is exactly what we are out here in the streets protesting against. You have made it so clear that you are not listening to your constituents. And I'm not here to tell you how to create solutions. That is your job. That is what you are getting paid for. But I am here to demand that you put more energy toward thinking creatively and proactively about alternative solutions to community intervention. Thank you.
Byron Amos. Good afternoon. I come before the committee today in reference to a resolution 20-R-4009, a resolution in reference to Cook Park. I am asking the committee to hold this table in committee until it has been able to receive the proper community NPU support. First and foremost, this legislation, in my opinion, is unnecessary. It is not needed to do the things that it is stated that it Greetings, Bishop John Lewis here, a resident of the historic Vine City community and also the chairperson of the Historic Vine City Civic Association. I'm calling today with my comments as regards the legislation for an association with the Cook Park. I'd just like to say that we have not, as an organization, the Vine City Civic Association has not met since February. Officially, our board has met, but our community has not met and will not meet until this month, the month of June, and it has not come before us officially about this. So I'm calling to state that due to the fact that we have not officially had a community meeting, that it, in my humble opinion, it would be inappropriate for me to support this without or to vote on it one way or the other until we've had an opportunity for the community to speak. Thank you so very much, and continue to have a wonderful, blessed, and safe day.
Yes, this is Linda Adams, a resident of historical Vine City community. I'm calling in to leave my comment on the legislation that should come before you today concerning Rodney Cook Park Council. I am not in favor of that council being formed for Rodney Cook Park in the Vine City neighborhood. There are concerns as to how the Councilman Brown submitted that, brought that before the NPU. NPU has not met since March, and Councilman Brown called in to the chairperson to have a special call meeting, which at that time did not have qualified voters to vote on anything, and furthermore, we had not had a meeting again since March of 2020. So again, I am not in favor of the Rodney Cook Park Council that's going to be submitted by Councilman Brown, the resolution city ordinance from Councilman Brown. I am not in favor. Thank you.
Please support the Vine City Civic Association in the National Monument Foundation existing Community Advisory Board. Now more than ever, we are reminded that Black lives matter. We have the right to self-determination. As a community legacy resident and longtime advocate for justice, I borrow from the words of Killer Mike. We are duty-bound to stand for the residents who requested not a mere park, but a space that spoke to the legacy of Vine City and told the story of those who stood for equity, justice, and freedom. We thank the Cook family who heard our vision and came forward in 2010 and began a working process with us to develop the space. We are grateful for the visionary, honorable leadership of City Council Member Ivory Lee Young, who saw the mutual benefit of our collaboration. The right to self-determination. There is a pre-existing Vine City Civic Association that has been in existence for 23 years. I pronounce that we oppose Councilman Brown's attempt to establish an additional advisory board that ignores a decade of work of the community from 2010 to today. We also requested to meet with Councilmember Brown 2 times, and he refused to meet with us. He canceled the meetings. It was our desire to share with him the evolution of the Rodney Cook Senior Park and why it was important to designate a space to honor our heroes and sheroes and preserve our story for future generations to come, and a library to be hosted in the Peace Column from C.T. Vivian's collection, a renowned collection. The process of this legislation was an error. It never came before the Vine City Civic Association. A rush call Zoom meeting by the NPU was staged. I could not access the meeting, and many others could not access the meeting. The community process was not followed. legacy that we have worked hard to establish. And the National Monument Foundation has been a kind partner to this community because they listened to what we wanted and helped us craft a vision and stayed the course with us. Thank you for your time. We must continue to strive for equity and justice, but we also must have a space and place that tells the story. Please support.
Hi, my name is Julian Oyala, and I currently live in the Summerhill Grand Park area, zip code 30315. I'm calling to express my disappointment in the way calls to defund the Atlanta Police Department were seemingly outright rejected by the council members on Monday in favor of tactics like diversity training, which historically is not any evidence that these training sessions actually work. Police Chief Erica Shields mentioned that the police undergo annual intensified de-escalation training. I'm wondering how these measures are measured, the effectiveness of these programs. If effectiveness can't be measured, then as far as I'm concerned, it's a waste of taxpayer time and money. One idea, Chief Shields mentioned she wanted ideas. Why aren't we considering diverting funding into a separate emergency health service run by people trained specifically in de-escalating mental health situations? Another idea I had was in situations involving drug addiction, instead of having an armed officer show up, have a separate service staff of people that are specifically trained in handling drug addiction as a health issue and not the criminal one. These are just some ideas, but overall I urge the council to be more creative and open-minded in envisioning a future where the police don't serve as a catch-all to all of our city's problems. It isn't fair to the police officers who are forced to respond to calls that they aren't trained or equipped to deal with, nor is it fair to the Black and brown communities of Atlanta that historically have been victims of violence and unfair policing practices. Again, I urge the council to be more open-minded to other options. Thank you for your time.
Greetings to you, council members and staff. A special greetings to you, citizens of Atlanta, watching and or listening to your government in action. Ben Howard, Senior Advocate, Public Policy Analyst. In item H17, 20-0-1423, relief is provided to renters for whom the security deposit is a barrier to their obtaining a place to live. The three security deposit options recommended in Exhibit A are reasonable and should not be a challenge to any landlord's bottom line. If the city of Atlanta had such a thing as a quality of life impact statement, this legislation would register in the plus column. There is a practice of placing some legislation on the neighborhood planning unit agendas, quote, for information only, unquote. If ever there were candidates for this debatable category, this legislation would comply and would send a message that the city too busy to hate is also compassionate. I caution you, however, that any attempts you might make to add anything to that tightly controlled NPUR agenda will be met with fierce resistance from the NPUR 9, Antonita Robinson, Gladys Clare, Ricardo Jacobs, Renette L. Scott, Alfred White, Sherry Williams, Allison Hathaway, and the NPUR 9 collaborators. Have a good afternoon.
Yes, this is Tillman Ward, Community Resources of Vine City, and the Vine City Civic Association Land Use Care. I do have comments about land use as it relates to the different sectors, historic sectors of Vine City. Thank you.
Hi, this is Julia Podindi, staff to the committee. This Community Development Human Services Committee meeting is being conducted remotely as advertised and as in accordance with OCGA 50-14-1. The meeting will be conducted in conformance with Robert's Rules of Order and the Rules of Council as authorized by the City Code. The public may access the meeting by dialing 877-579-6743, conference ID 831-599-1256, which was noted on the June 5th, 2020 public meeting notice. The public may also view the meeting on Channel 26, the Council's homepage at citycouncil.atlantagA.gov, the Council's YouTube channel, or the Council's Facebook or Twitter pages via @ATL Council. All presentations are available on the Atlanta City Council Community Development Human Services Committee presentation page. The agenda was published and made available on June 5th, 2020 via atlantacitygA.iqm2.com. All persons present on the remote council meeting conference bridge are requested to mute your phones and speakers. Additionally, speakers must be acknowledged by the presiding officer prior to speaking. Each council member is requested to open your Outlook email and minimize the screen. Amendments, substitutes, and informational documents have been distributed to committee members beforehand. Thank you all in advance for your cooperation.
Thank you very much, and thank you to members of the public for sharing your comments today. Next up on our agenda, we have one presentation. It's a quarterly update from the Department of Parks and Recreation, and with us to share that update is Interim Commissioner LaShondra Burks.
Good afternoon to Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to do a public presentation on the Department of Parks and Recreation's quarterly update. And so I think what we'll start, the next slide is really looking at our Department of Parks and Recreation operations during COVID-19. Many of you have heard me mention during our budget presentation just around the staff who have continued to be very, very diligent and committed to the city and the department during this time. Particularly, of course, our parks and green spaces remain open to the public. The first one is a sign that you may have seen out in our parks, is saying that we want people to do their part while visiting our parks and reminding them that our playgrounds, all of our courts, athletic fields, and pavilions are closed. And then the other sign is what we have been advertising around our golf courses becoming green spaces and walking paths and being open during this time. The next slide is an early on flyer that we put out regarding continuing our free meals for Atlanta students during COVID-19. And we have a few updates as it relates to our meal program. Since June 1st, we transitioned into our summer food program, and now we are serving breakfast and lunch on the go at 15 locations, which includes recreation centers, some apartment complexes, nonprofits, and churches. And then our dinner, we have kept it going even though we have started our summer food program, thanks to everyone who voted on that legislation to keep it going. So we are continuing to serve dinner on the go at 19 of our recreation centers. The next slide shows a few nice little faces from previous Campus Friends years. And so we're in a different space now, of course, but I wanted to give an update on where we are with Campus Friends and how we think it will look this summer. And the next slide talks about our virtual summer camp, which we are calling the CBF Club. And this will provide free online summer camp experience for those who registered through our iPark software registration system. We are looking to have morning activities from 9 a.m. to noon, and then starting again with some afternoon activities from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And then we're also implementing our first Campus Friends in a Box for 200 of our families at a one-time cost of $35. They will have access to all of the morning and afternoon activities, as well as they will be able to get their Campus Friends T-shirts, some other sled, jump rope, kite, kits, and more that we will have live activities on for those youth. Our next slide also talks a little bit more about our virtual summer camp, looking at some virtual learning as well and not just activities. So we have purchased 500 log-on access for youth under an online system called IXL, which is an online learning-based software package that you can use, and is specifically aligned to the Georgia education standards. And we have subjects available in language arts, math, science, and social studies for grades kindergarten through 12th grade. And we also will have some certified teachers who will be tracking individual child's progress and being able to send information and talk to parents around students' progress and where they are. And we're also looking to do different types of exploratory classes. We will have some STEAM activities, performing arts, and other activities. And if things get a little bit better, we will have pop-up exercise in our parks. And we will try to use some of our parks that are not normally used by residents so that we can explore and introduce some of our parks to residents that they may not have used before. And so we will look at recreation staff who would do 20 to 30-minute exercise classes for 20 or less youth. The next slide looks at our Atlanta Teen Leaders Academy Workforce Program. As you all know, we normally hire a group of teens throughout the summer where they take courses 2 days a week, and then they actually work in our recreation centers 3 days a week. So we are making some adjustments through this virtual environment and working with Workforce Atlanta for those teens who will continue to work with us this summer, but they will have some virtual learning, and you can see some of the subject areas that we will continue to focus on throughout the summer. Our next slide deals with our older Atlantans virtual programming and pop-up exercise. I mentioned during our budget hearing that we had some seniors who would be participating in a Zoom and Facebook Live exercise class that was going to be led by the Atlanta Hawks cheerleaders. We had our first session on yesterday at 11 a.m., and we had 70 participants. We were extremely excited. It was good to see a lot of our seniors who participate in our Primetime Senior Program, who normally would be participating in Camp Best Friends as well, now being able to be a part of that on yesterday. And we will continue to have those until we are able to see them again face-to-face. We will also, as things get better around COVID-19, do pop-up exercises outside of our senior facilities where we can have right at about 20 seniors spread out and be able to do in-person 20 and 30-minute exercises per day as well. And I tell you, this is just a compliment to a lot of our seniors who are receiving groceries and meals from the Mayor Bottoms program around feeding our seniors during this time. So they said they're eating well. Now they need to work out just a little bit more. So the next slide, which is entitled Phase 2, will kind of give you an idea of what we're working on based on the Mayor's Advisory Council report for the reopening of the city. And of course, Phase 2 looks at easing, and so we are working very close to begin to slowly open our golf courses, our tennis courses, as well as our indoor pools. For golf, it will be appointments only, and we will start with our current members in order to do that. And we are implementing all types of new safety procedures as it relates to COVID-19 and CDC requirements. For our tennis courts and tennis centers, we will start to see them reopen again as well. We are going to be doing single matches only. And so we will continue to monitor those. And for indoor pools, we will be doing lap lane swim by appointment only. And we will start looking at those who have memberships within Parks and Recreation first, and then open it up for other residents to do lap swim at our indoor pools. The next slide looks at Phase 3. And for Phase 3, of course, under the reopening plan is a phase called Maintain. And when we get to maintaining, we will be looking at small group camps on site, as well as opening our outdoor pools. The next slide, the next few slides actually, but specifically I want to give you some information about our small group camps on site and how we are looking to do those. We are looking at housing them at 20 of our recreation centers and being in full compliance with the CDC guidelines. And you can see listed our daily program components that we are hoping we will be able to implement once we get to this particular phase. The next slide is entitled Camp Best Friends Summer 2020. So I want to give you a little bit more information on how we are looking at our summer camps. So we have looked at it in two different scenarios. The first scenario being one counselor for 9 campers, which follows the CDC guidelines specifically for daycare centers. Looking at a total of 20 locations, we will be able to serve 486 youth. That is a huge drop for us for the summer, which is why we're hoping that the online piece will be successful as well, because last summer we served right at 4,011 youth in Camp Best Friends. The second scenario looks at being in compliance with the CDC based on the summer camp guidelines, which gives 2 counselors for 18 campers, and that will allow us to serve 521 campers across 20 locations. Next slide, please. As we look at the additional COVID-specific camp adjustments and requirements, we will see contactless child drop-off, temperature checks for staff and campers, social distancing, PPE. The CDC requires us to have an isolation room in every rec center in the event of an illness of a staff or a camper, in classroom meals, and we will have a tremendous increase in cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting practices. Looking at our operations, specifically under the next slide, specifically under our new cleaning procedures, you will see a lot of the things that are required, and we are actually in the process of also purchasing the new fog cleaning machines, which we would use at our rec centers, our golf courses, and at our parks work facilities on a daily basis. Looking specifically at outdoor pools, we will be, once we get to this phase where we can open our outdoor pools, we will reduce pool capacity at each one of our pools, and the CDC has placed out some guidelines, and we have been working with both the Fulton County and DeKalb County Boards of Health as well. But checking temperatures of staff and patrons, increase our cleaning again, maintaining our water quality, and changing the layout of our deck if we have furniture on the deck at all. And the next slide actually deals with our comprehensive master plan. While we have done a lot of work on the COVID-19 space as it relates to our parks, our various amenities, and summer camp, we have also continued with our comprehensive master plan process. And I know that this was, I think, the focus of the last quarterly presentation around kind of where we were and how that process was going to roll out. So we thought it important to make sure that you all know that we're still working on that. The next slide continues to show our purpose and goals, looking at the 10-year vision for provision of facilities, programs, and services. We want this to truly be a living document and make sure that it aligns with Mayor Bonham's One Atlanta agenda. The next slide it's actually a copy of a postcard that we will be mailing out within the next week that talks about our public engagement meetings, which we are transforming to a virtual platform. The dates that we are looking at, we will have 2 meetings a day, 2 virtual meetings a day, 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., June 23rd, June 24th, July 1st, July 11th, July 13th, and the July 18th one will be specifically dedicated to our Spanish-speaking population. We will also next week be launching the website for our master plan, which is activate-atl.com. And that is where people can go to actually complete our survey that we will have that will feed into the recommendations for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And lastly, just a few photos on the next slide of what we call our Parks and Rec public heroes, just showing some of the work that they continue to do during COVID-19 and continuing to make our parks a very welcoming space, continuing to serve our youth and our recreation centers, and making sure that our golf courses are open for as use for public green space. And with that, I will conclude the presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Butler-Brooks, for your presentation. Colleagues, if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and press your speaker button, and we will get to those. Briefly recap my 3 comments to you from the budget conversation last week, and say thank you for opening up the city's golf courses to residents as a way to get out and recreate and walk around. Had a chance to walk all 4, and they are beautiful places that I hope many residents are taking advantage of right now, and that we'll find some way to have citizens be able to do that post-COVID as well. And then I know the outdoor pools you've mentioned a couple times in terms of being able to reopen, and whenever they do, they will be free to all residents. So thank you so much for your work on helping make that a reality as well. And then finally, food. During the last 5 or 6 weeks of summer, as APS takes a little bit of a break from all the food feeding that they've been doing, that will enable us to feed more of our young folks before they head back to school in the fall. So thanks for your efforts on all 3 of those. Ms. Shepard.
Thank you. On slide 16 and 17, in terms of the plan, the rollout for the strategic plan for parks, I just want to make sure that you go ahead and have you sent this information to the council membership so we can begin to push it out to the community, especially in terms of these virtual meetings. Really, I'm excited about it. You know, we could have had one-on-ones because of COVID-19. We can't, but I want to make sure that we are getting engaged in terms of the virtual meetings. And I see where the schedule is one that July the 11th is the one for Southwest or Southeast. And I'm trying to figure out Southwest, Southeast. I got to figure out which one of those in my district do I plug into, if it's both. So you may need to do a little bit more breakdown. I'm looking at the map, and I may have to do both. I'm not sure, but I think maybe Southeast. But bottom line is just get the information out and give me clarity on that so that I can begin to market it in my district. And thank you, Councilman. Thank you for the work you're doing. And I last week you said the commissioner was doing pretty good. He's at home, but thank you for serving in his stay until he comes back. Thank you so much for what you're doing also. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And we are actually finalizing a letter and a one-pager along with the mailer that we're doing to all council members so that we can get that to you to kind of give you a full update on the one-pager as well as get you a copy of the postcard so that you can help us to advertise it. So thank you so much. And you may have to participate in Southwest and Southeast, but thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shepard. Any other questions or comments from colleagues? All right. In that case, thank you very much, Ms. Butler-Brooks, for your presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I just could add one piece on, at your next meeting, you may see something coming for us to do an amendment for our outdoor pools. Because there was an increased cost with going with free swim, we will be submitting a recommended amendment to the contract to be approved for increased costs that was approved and that was presented in our budget. dispensing. So thank you so much.
Yep, thank you for the heads up. Ms. Pugliini, will you go ahead and read in the first 11 items on our consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item number 1, 20-1400, CDP 20-004, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2016 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 160 Little Street Southeast from the single-family residential land use designation to the medium-density residential land use designation and for other purposes, Z-19-121 and PUV, Council District 1. Item number 2, 20-0-1401, CDP-20-010, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2016 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1596 Willowbrook Drive Southwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the low-density residential land use designation for other purposes, Z-20-001 and PUS, Council District S, 12. Item number 3, 20-01402, CDP-20-001, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2016 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 255 Love Street Southwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the low-density residential land use designation and for other purposes, Z-20-018 and PUV, Council District 4. Item number 4, 20-0-1404, CDP-20-014, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2016 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 526 North Avenue Northeast from the low-density commercial land use designation to the mixed-use high-density land use designation and 615 and 617 Kennesaw Avenue Northeast from the low-density residential land use designation to the mixed-use density land use designation and for other purposes, Z-20-029 and PUM, Council District 2. Item number 5, 20-0-1405, CDP-20-015, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2016 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1750 Chattahoochee Avenue Northwest from the industrial land use designation to the high-density residential land use designation and for other purposes, Z-20-032 and PUD, Council District 9. Item number 6, 20-0-1406, CDP-20-016, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2016 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1593 and 1595 Chattahoochee Avenue Northwest from the industrial land use designation to the mixed-use medium-density land use designation and for the purposes, Z-20-033 and PUD, Council District 9. Item number 7, 20-01407, CDP-20-017, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use designation, the land use element of the 2016 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1661 Chattahoochee Avenue Northwest from the industrial land use designation to the very high density residential land use designation and for the purposes, C-20-034 and PUD, Council District 9. Item number 8, 20-0-1408, CDP-20-020, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2016 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate certain properties within the post-Ponce Highland Historic District from various land use designations to various land use designations to implement the proposed Ponce Highland Historic District and for other purposes, Z-20-015, NPUN, Council District 2. Item number 9, 20-0-1409, CDP-20-021, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2016 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1230 North Avenue Northwest, parcel IDs listed, 2030 North Avenue Northwest, and 0 North Avenue Northwest rear from the open space land use designation to the mixed use land use designation, 1268 North Avenue Northwest, 1254 North Avenue Northwest, 1254 North Avenue rear northwest, and 0 North Avenue from the low density residential land use designation to the mixed use land use designation, 425 Chapel Road Northwest from the high density residential land use designation to the mixed use land use designation, and 1345 Mason Turner Road Northwest, 1365 Mason Turner Road Northwest, 0 North Avenue Northwest rear, and 0 North Avenue Northwest rear from the very high density land use designation to mixed-use land use designation, and for the purposes Z-20-040 NPUK Council District 3. Item number 10, 20-0-1437, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee to enter into amendment number 1 to ratify FC-8765 Land Management Remote Application Hosting and Maintenance Services with Acela Inc. to establish the initial contract terms to be April 1, 2016 through March 31st, 2019, and to correct Resolution 19R3515, renewal number 1, terms from July 7, 2016 through July 6, 2019, to be April 1, 2019 through March 31st, 2020. Also to execute renewal number 2 retroactively beginning April 1, 2020 through March 31st, 2021 in accordance with Section 2-1163 of Article 10 Procurement and Real Estate Code for the purpose of Acela Land Management Remote Application Hosting and Maintenance on behalf of the Department of City Planning for a term of 1 year in an amount not to exceed $480,714.67. All contract of work shall be charged to and paid from the accounts listed herein and for the purposes. And item number 11, 20-0-1438, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor to accept a grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for an FY 2020 Brownfield Assessment Cooperative Agreement in the amount of $300,000, amending the 2020 Intergovernmental Grant Fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations in the amount of $300,000 and for the purposes.
Before we move to the regular agenda, Ms. Shepherd.
I just have a technical question. So the CDP public hearings is said to be held on June 22nd. Are we doing the CDP hearings? If so, how are we doing them? Are they virtual, or are we really doing the hearings? Can you tell me, Mr. Westmoreland?
Yes, ma'am. The last one that we did in March, we also did virtually, and this will be done that way as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Pulinini.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. The meetings will be conducted remotely, and a public notice has been published in the AJC. It was published on June 5th, and it's also been publicly noticed on the City Council website with all the access information for the public.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. All right, Ms. Pulinini, if you would move on to ordinances for second reading with item number 12.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item number 12, 20-0-1384, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee amending 19-0-1334 to correct the account strings and associated funding amounts for projects under the Community Development Block Grant Program and for other purposes.
Mr. Keene or Ms. Franklin?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This legislation is correcting some funding streams from our previous legislation in order to move forward and execute contracts. So it's just correcting the funding streams from the funding sources to the correct funding sources.
There are no questions or comments. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second, Smith.
Do we have a motion by Westmoreland, second by?
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
Seven yeas, 0 nays.
Item number 13, 20-0-1385, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to transfer expenditures in an amount not to exceed $133,000.00 from the LEAB CDBG grants account to the Department of City Planning fiscal year 2020 general fund budget to satisfy disallowed costs from the LEAB lead-based paint hazard control grant and for other purposes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes. Only Franklin, Department of Grants and Community Development. We were issued a notice from HUD in regards to our lead grant that there were some costs at the end of the period that were unallowed. So in that effort, we have to move those expenditures off of the grant into a different funding source in order to clear up the discrepancies with the disallowed costs.
There are no questions or comments. I will make a motion to approve.
Second, Smith.
Got a motion and a second.
Just to confirm, the mover was Councilmember Archibong and the seconder was you, Councilmember Westmoreland?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, one moment, please.
Seven yeas, 0 nays. That motion carries, and that item has been recommended to be filed. Next item.
Just for clarity, Councilmember Westmoreland, this item is a dual referral, so it'll now go to DC.
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is number 15, 20-1414, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone amending the FY 2020 intergovernmental budget by adding to anticipations and transferring to and from appropriations in the amount of X for the purpose of reprogramming HOPWA for inclusion in the 2019 Annual Action Plan of the 2015 to 2019 Consolidated Plan, and authorizing the mayor on behalf of the City of Atlanta to extend the contractual agreement for 2018 housing opportunities for persons with ADS or AIDS HOPWA sponsors approved by Ordinance 18-0-1393 for the purpose of various HOPWA projects. HOPWA project sponsors will continue to provide facility-based housing, permanent housing placement, tenant-based rental assistance, special needs housing, short-term rental, rent and mortgage, utility assistance, emergency lodging, recuperative care, and all other approved eligible HOPWA activities to persons living with HIV/AIDS, said activities to be charged and paid from accounts listed and for the purposes. And there's an amendment in your packet which adds the dollar amount to the caption and also attaches Exhibit A, which is the list of fund transfers, and Exhibit B, the project list with contract extension and date.
Thank you. I will go ahead and make a motion to amend to attach Exhibits A and B. Is there a second?
Second, Smith.
Second by Smith. Motion by Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is amended. Any questions or comments for Ms. Franklin?
Move to approve as amended, Smith.
I will motion to approve as amended. We need to do it on condition of completion of a 5-day public comment period and a public hearing at the June 15th full council meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I will make that motion. Ms. Palladini and Ms. Smith can second it. There we go.
Would everyone please vote?
Vote 7 yeas, 0 nays. That motion carries. Next item.
Item number 16, 2014-16, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone authorizing the mayor, her designee, on behalf of the City of Atlanta to exercise contract renewal option number 2 with eCivis, Inc. in accordance with Section 2-1163 of Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances on behalf of the Department of Grants and Community Development for the Grants Network Research Master Subscription and Services Agreement for an amount not to exceed $56,200.00 effective May 1, 2020 through April 30th, 2020. All contracted services will be charged to and paid from accounts listed and for other purposes. And there's an amendment in your packet which adds the section title of Section 2-1163 and related subsection, and it also corrects the end date to April 30th, 2021 in the caption.
I will make a motion to amend. Is there a second?
Second, Smith.
Second by Smith.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is amended. If there are no questions or comments, I will move approval as amended.
Second, Smith.
With a second from Councilmember Smith.
Vote is open.
Seven yeas, 0 nays. That item is adopted as amended.
Item number
Next item.
Number 17, 2014-23, an ordinance by Councilmembers Amira Faroki, Antonio Brown, and Matt Westmoreland to amend Chapter 94, Human Relations, so as to add a new Article 9 entitled Landlord Tenant Security Deposit Regulations to provide for related regulations, requirements, and procedures, and for other purposes.
Mr. Faroki.
Yeah, this is Councilmember Faroki, obviously. I just want to move to hold this, still working with some stakeholders to get it into shape.
I will second Mr. Faroki's motion to hold, if you will open that vote.
Sorry, one moment. The vote is open. Will everyone please vote?
7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is held. Next item.
Number 18, 2014-27, an ordinance by Councilmember Antonio Brown amending Ordinance 20-0-1028 to limit the building permit fee waiver program to growth areas of the City of Atlanta as designated by the Atlanta City Design and for other purposes.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm not sure if Commissioner Keene is with us today. But colleagues, we've been working with the Office of Planning and working through the permit fee waiver legislation and come up with the recommended idea to limit the waiver to designated growth areas, which will encourage developers to build affordable housing around transit corridors and high-density areas where housing costs are skyrocketing. Commissioner Keene also attached a map to the legislation to identify where these growth areas are. And Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if Mr. Keene is with us today.
Commissioner?
I guess he's not on this call. But if you all look at the attachments that were submitted in regards to this particular amendment, it was put together by the Office of Planning and supported as the most effective way to roll out the original permit fee waiver paper that was approved by Council this past February. So, Mr. Chair, I move to motion for approval.
Second, Smith.
We have a motion by Brown, a second by Smith, and a question or comment from Shepard.
Mr. Brown,
Well, go ahead, Ms. Shepard. We actually do have Commissioner Keene, if there's a way to unmute him. But Ms. Shepard, while we're figuring that out, if you have a question or comment.
I haven't had a chance to look at the map in all of that area, so I'm just trying to figure out where the mapping area is. I don't know if Commissioner Keene can tell me, and the rest of that in terms of where the mapping areas are. So could someone help me with that? I understand the rationale, but just where are they? You're waiting on Mr. King? Hello?
I'm sorry, my phone was on mute. I apologize. Councilmember Shepard, yeah, I would, so we all have the map in front of us. The map is, part of the PDF attachment that was along with the legislation. I wanted to give Mr. King the opportunity to speak to it. But if you look at the map, it is the areas in which that the city design team have identified as growth areas, and they're kind of sporadic, kind of throughout the entire city, where this focus is going to be, with a concentration in the heart of the city, specifically around our communities that are struggling right now to increase the affordable housing digest in these specific target areas. Mr. Chair, is Mr. Keene with us or not?
He is. Commissioner, go ahead.
Yeah, I apologize. I was on the call and muted. Councilmember Brown has explained it well. To the degree you want me to continue, the legislation, of course, that you approved several months ago applied the incentive throughout the city. So every part of the city was eligible. We talked and thought it would be very helpful to concentrate the incentive on areas where people can live more affordably. So the growth areas are the downtown of the city, the core business districts of the city, but also the commercial corridors that touch every part of the city. So it's equitably distributed geographically throughout Atlanta. And it's in a place where people, as Councilmember Brown said, have best access to transit and services, and therefore jobs as well.
Okay, well, unfortunately, I haven't been able to find it yet. I see the handout, but the handout that was given doesn't show the map. So, no problem. It's just, Mr. Brown, I don't want you to think I would be opposing. I just want to look at the map, so if I don't vote for it, it's not because I'm opposing it, okay? Until I can see the map. All right?
Yep. Can we get Councilmember Shepard the map? Because I thought it was sent out via email. I saw the email with the attachment. Councilmember Shepard, if you refer to the email that my chief of staff, Thad Flowers, sent you on Monday at 3:32 p.m., it's the map that says permit fee growth area map. I pulled it up. The way it's in the PDF, you kind of have to maximize it to be able to look at the map, which is what I had to do just to kind of expand it so you can see. But the Office of Planning did a really good job of kind of like identifying where these growth areas are along the transit line, which was a primary focus when we were looking at identifying these growth areas. So it's like Midtown, downtown, and along the MARTA lines where we had the opportunity to really increase the affordable housing digest.
And so if you all want to give me a moment until I can find the map, because I didn't look at it on my emails. I don't always get all my emails that go to another place. So, and I didn't miss, it was not a part of the attachments for today.
One moment, Councilmember Smith. I'm just checking to confirm. I know Councilmember Brown had a map attached to one piece of legislation. I'm just Yes, it was attached as an exhibit to the legislation.
Okay, so to the legislation, okay.
Yes,
Now, I can't pull up the legislation on my computer here because of how our system is. Y'all might have to give me a minute. And
No problem.
So maybe we can just come back. I'm not saying no to it, but just give me a minute. Can we come back? Y'all don't mind?
So I just exit it to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Give me a minute.
Thank you,
Councilmember Brown, would you be open to coming back to this item in a few minutes so we can keep the meeting going?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Why don't we do that? Thank you, Commissioner, for your comments. Ms. Rupini, why don't we move on to item number 19, and then we can come back to 18 in a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 19, 20-01428, an ordinance by Councilmember Jennifer and I to erect a historical marker in Oak Grove Park of Olmsted Linear Park to recognize the lynching in Druid Hills of Mr. Porter Turner and for other purposes.
I will move approval.
Second, Brown.
Vote is open.
Seven yeas, 0 nays. That item carries. On to resolutions.
Item number 20, 20R4007, CDP-20-022, a resolution by Community Development Human Services Committee to transmit the draft development impact fee study and ordinance update capital improvement element CIE amendment to the Atlanta Regional Commission and the Department of Community Affairs in compliance with the requirements of the Georgia Planning Act of 1989 and for other purposes. And there is an amendment in your packet which updates Exhibit B, which is the draft ordinance.
I will make a motion to amend. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Brown.
We have a motion by Westmoreland, a second by Smith. Ms. Shepherd. Ms. Shepherd, did you have a question or comment on item 20?
No, I don't, but I'm ready when y'all come back. That was stuff coming from before.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor to amend. If we could get, there we go. Ms. Archibald? There we go. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is amended. I will now make a motion to hold.
Second, Smith.
With a second by Councilmember Smith.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is held. Next item.
Mr. Chair, did you want to go back to item number 18 now?
Only if Ms. Shepherd is ready. You ready, Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Let's go ahead. Okay. Why don't we go ahead back, and Ms. Boudin, why don't you just go ahead and read it in one more time?
Item number 18, 20-01427, an ordinance by Councilmember Antonio Brown, amending ordinance 20-0-1028 to limit the building permit fee waiver program to growth areas of the City of Atlanta as designated by the Atlanta City Design and for the purposes, and Councilmember Brown had previously made a motion and Councilmember Smith was the second.
We've got a motion by Brown, a second by Smith, and any questions or comments from anybody, Councilmember Shepherd or others?
I'm good.
Sounds good. Ms. Poulding, if you will open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable. On to item 21.
Number 21, 20R4009, a resolution by Councilmember Antonio Brown establishing Rodney Cook Senior Park Advisory Council to engage the community and provide recommendations on implementing policies and procedures for the future maintenance and improvement of the park and for the purposes. And there is a substitute which was emailed separately, which makes some corrections to the legislation and also attaches 3 letters of support from NPUL, Park Pride, and the Trust for Public Land.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I was approached by the community probably a little over a month ago in a discussion to establish a Cook Park Conservancy, similar to a lot of the other conservancies that we have throughout the city of Atlanta. And through this work, I had internal discussions with council members, but as well as with the Trust for Public Land and Park Pride and the MPUs and residents to figure out the best course of action to move this forward. And through that work, after speaking with Park Pride and their Friends of the Park, and understanding from a lot of the stakeholders that are vested into Cook Park, it was determined that the best course of action would be to establish an advisory council, and from the advisory council, a Friends of the Park would be established, because from the action of the advisory council, it will allow the partners that are originally a part of the work that's happening right now to move the park forward. It will give them the ability to work with the community and then allow the community to take ownership of the Friends of the Park model that Park Pride will support, along with the Trust for Public Land, because the way that the Park Pride model is set up, it is primarily a community-based initiative with only residents. So in addition to this, I made a commitment to the MPU and to the Vine City community that from the point of the advisory council and the park Friends of the Park for Rodney Cook Senior Park was stood up, my council office would make a financial contribution of $10,000 to support them standing up the Friends of the Park and eventually moving it into a conservancy, because we recognized that to move into a conservancy first would require, fundraising and the ability to sustain the conservancy. And we wanted to ensure that the community not only had a voice in what was transpiring with Cook Park, but also that we were able to provide them a way to have a structure that could support the sustainability of moving from just a Friends of the Park model into an actual conservancy. So that's how this legislation originally came to be. The MPU got involved and announced a meeting about 2 weeks ago and gave residents the opportunity to be able to see the legislation in advance, be able to weigh in on the legislation, as well as held a special called meeting where individuals were able to speak to whether there were concerns about the legislation or there were, or if they wanted to support this and move it forward. It did. There were about 25 people on the call, and it did pass favorably through the MPU. There were some individuals from the English Avenue Neighborhood Association that spoke against the legislation because they believed that they should have an appointment on the advisory council, because the park is close in vicinity to their neighborhood. I included, if you look at the appointments that are currently on the legislation now, there are 2 members from Neighborhood Planning Unit L. There are 2 members in which they will elect who those members are. There are 2 members from the Vine City Civic Association that will be a part of this. There is a member from the Trust for Public Land, a member from the Westside Future Fund, a member from the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation, a member from Park Pride, 1 appointee from the District 3 council member, 1 appointee from the Post 1 at-large council member, and then part of the amendment was that we would have representation on this advisory council from the parks, the Commission of Parks and Recs within the city, as they will be identified as an ex officio member of the advisory council and be able to weigh in from that perspective. So I think this is a really good piece of legislation to allow the community to have a voice and to be a part of the conversation, but also to empower the community to not just move into a place of Friends of the Park through the support of Park Pride, but also to eventually form a sustainable conservancy in which our District 3 Council office can continue to support long term. So, Mr. Chair, I will open it up for any questions. I'll make a motion to approve the legislation and open it up for any questions.
The motion by Brown, is there a second?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, the item has not been substituted yet, so the motion should be first to bring forth the substitute.
Okay. Mr. Brown, will you make that motion?
Sure. Motion to bring forth the substitute.
I will second that.
Thank you. Vote is open. Vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. That item has been substituted. Mr. Brown, would you like to remake your original motion?
Sure. Motion to bring to approve the substitute before.
Motion to approve the substitute. Is there a second? Any questions or comments?
Second.
Second from Faruqi. Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for bringing forward your substitute. I'd like to make a substitute motion to hold, and I will tell you why. It's not really in dispute as to whether or not there ought to be a conservancy for this park at some point. It's really just representing the interests of the Vine City community that hasn't had the opportunity to fully vet this legislation or this proposal or to participate in the formation of the legislation and the committee as proposed. The NPU did hold a special call meeting, I believe at the request of the author, Mr. Brown, and there are questions in the community as to whether or not that is was a legally called NPU meeting. Secondly, not all members of the NPU were effectively noticed and were able to participate in that meeting. Myself, as a 50-year resident of Vine City and NPUL, I was not able to get on the call for that NPU meeting, and there were several other members of the community who were voting members of the NPU who were also not able to get on that call. I think, as you heard from some of the public comments, that officers and members of the Vine City Civic Association would like the opportunity to speak with the council member and review the legislation at their June meeting. And I don't think that it would be robbery to do so. the legislation that's pending for the lease of the park that's going to make the park happen, that the Conservancy would have the concern to advise and guide on, also contemplates the creation of such an entity. And so it would be my hope that these two pieces of legislation could travel together so that we can have a unified, inclusive conversation about all aspects of the park and community participation related thereto. And so, not that I don't think that the Conservancy is a good idea. I think it's a wonderful idea. But I do think that we ought to let the community have the crack at it that they've requested of this body and requested of the council member that also would fulfill the NPU's own bylaws, which were not followed in this case. In NPU-L, the NPU's own bylaws say that they would not take a stand or submit letters of support without having the approval of the affected community or the affected community organization. And as of yet, that has not happened. So I would make a substitute motion to hold so that the affected community organization, the Vine City Civic Association, can have a look at the legislation, and perhaps both of these pieces of legislation could work in tandem to travel together so we can have a unified front on developing this park, moving forward. I think the activities of the last 10 or 11 days in our country and our city suggest that this type of park and its message is more badly needed than at any other time in recent history. So I think we ought to hold hands together and make sure everybody feels good about moving forward, because there's still some residue of consternation about this particular piece, and I think we ought to take 2 weeks to hold it and allow those issues to be addressed. So that's my motion to hold.
We have a substitute motion on the floor. Is there a second? Not hearing a second. I believe the original motion remains on the floor. Is that correct, Ms. Bulletin?
No, point of order. These machines require a second. The council has not changed the rules of committee to require a second for motions in committee.
I will defer to staff and or the parliamentarian on that front, as we've been operating that way at least less than 2.5 years. Okay. Ms. Bulletin, while you're acting on that, go ahead, Mr. Bond.
It's nice to change our rules.
Yeah. Well, Ms. Archibong, I saw you listed. You're good?
I think what Mr. Bond is saying is accurate.
Okay. Ms. Bulletin, is that the case?
The council director has confirmed that we need a second, as we did for other motions made in committee.
Councilmember Westmoreland, I will second Councilmember Bond's motion to hold the paper. If the Vine City Civic Association feels as though they have not been heard, I do want to make mention that they were very prevalent on the call at the MPU. Those that voted in support of this advisory council, the Vine City Civic Association, was present. They were the majority that voted in support of this legislation. The minority that voted was from the English Avenue Neighborhood Association. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. But if Councilmember Bond is stating that Vine City Civic Association does feel as though they have not been heard, I will second his motion to hold the paper and allow the people to be heard.
Motion from Bond, second by Brown. Please open the vote.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. That is exceedingly gracious of you and deeply appreciated. Thank you.
No problem.
7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is held. Next item.
Our next item is number 22, 20R4050, a resolution by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or the commissioner of the Department of Parks and Recreation as their designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into Amendment Number 1 to the Memorandum of Understanding with the Chastain Park Conservancy for the purpose of allowing the use of a building located in Chastain Park, located at 4001 Powers Ferry Road Northwest, Atlanta, Georgia 30342, and for the purposes. And there's an amendment in your packet which attaches Exhibit A, which is a map of the area, and B, which is the amendment to the MOU. The amendment also corrects an incorrect reference to Exhibit A in the first resolve clause.
I will make a motion to amend. Is there a second?
Second, Smith.
Second by Smith.
Vote is open.
Mr. Faruqi? Thank you much. 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is amended. If there are no questions or comments, I will make a motion to adopt as amended.
Second, Brown.
With a second by Councilmember Brown.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable as amended. Next item.
Item number 23, 20R4054, a resolution by Councilmember Carla Smith authorizing the mayor on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into a contractual agreement with Western Georgia, Inc. for the installation of an electronic entry gate located at 827 Pryor Street, Atlanta, Georgia, 30315 for an amount not to exceed $25,100.00 for a term extending to December 31st, 2020. All contracted work shall be charged to and paid from accounts listed and for the purposes, and there's an amendment in your packet which corrects an account number in the funding stream in the caption.
I will make the motion to amend. Is there a second?
Second, Smith. Thank you.
We have a second by Smith. Ms. Shepard.
Ms. Smith, could you just tell me where this location is, 827 Pryor Street?
Yes, this is West Care. It is on Pryor Street. It's really, really in my district, I promise. And it is on the other side. It's on your side of 7585, but it's still located in District 1. It's if you stop and think about it, it's in Mechanicsville.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Okay.
Answer my question.
It really is mine.
The only reason I'm asking because there's another issue with another construction site or something, and I'm like, okay, are they talking about that one or another one? So
No, this is an existing. It's called West Care, and they are a wonderful organization in our district and are in all of our neighborhoods. And they're needing to put up an electronic gate, so we're assisting them.
Okay, somebody asked me something MPV, and I think your son was in my district. I was thinking maybe this is what they're talking about, so I apologize. I'm not trying to be controversial. Just want to know.
No, that's fine. I'm glad you have. Now everybody, I've said West Care like 4 times. I'll say it once more. West Care. They're a great organization.
Here we go. All right, we've got a motion and a second to amend. If we can take that vote first.
Vote is open. Will everyone please vote?
I have stepped away from my computer. Can you record me, Jake, please?
Sure thing. 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is amended. Ms. Smith, would you like to make a motion to adopt as amended?
Yes. Motion to approve as amended.
The motion by Smith, which I will second.
One moment, please. Vote is open. Vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. That item as amended.
That concludes the
Including, I believe
legislative.
that.
Yes.
That does conclude our legislative items. I will make one announcement since the tree protection ordinance work session will be very soon after our next committee meeting. It will be held remotely on Thursday, Thursday, June 25th at 10 a.m. We will be sending out more information now and then. That is 2 weeks from this Thursday. And if there are no other comments from committee members, we will stand adjourned.
Thank you. Great meeting.
Great meeting.
Thank you much.
Thank you, Chairman Moreland. It was great. Ms. Moreland, it was great.
Appreciate it, Chair Shepard. We got you a whole extra hour before public. Oh, no, you don't even have public safety today. I'll laugh.
Hallelujah.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good afternoon, everybody. We stand adjourned.